The 911 operator's voice is echoing on speaker in my driveway while a woman in a sun visor rattles my locked side gate like it owes her money. "Yes, emergency," she says into her phone with dramatic urgency, peering at my pool through the slats like she is narrating a hostage situation. A homeowner is obstructing community hydration. There are people suffering from heat exhaustion who need immediate access to this aquatic resource. I stir my lemonade slowly, ice cubes clinking against the glass, and watch her with growing disbelief. The gate clacks violently against the lock with each aggressive shake. A lifeguard whistle dangles from her neck on a red lanyard like a sheriff's star she printed at the local copy shop. Behind her, 3 other women in matching visors nod solemnly, holding rolled-up towels like they are preparing for some kind of synchronized swimming intervention. I am Marcus Hale. I bought a modest ranch in Pinecrest Heights because the backyard is private and the pool is my therapy. Quiet laps, zero gossip, just me and the water and maybe a podcast about something that does not involve other people's opinions. My dream afternoon includes sunscreen that smells like coconut, a book I will probably fall asleep reading, and absolutely no neighbors peering over fences or commenting on my landscaping choices. I work from home as a software consultant, which means my pool breaks are sacred. 15 minutes in that water can solve coding problems that have stumped me for hours. Enter our antagonist, Lorine Pike, HOA Vice President and self-appointed Aquatic Harmony Chair, a title I am fairly certain she invented during a particularly slow board meeting. She believes property lines are imaginary suggestions unless they are painted eggshell, which is the only approved exterior color according to the HOA handbook she quotes like scripture. Our first skirmish involved my non-compliant flotation device, which was a neon pizza slice raft that, according to Lorine, disrupts the community's earth tone narrative. I thought she was joking. She was not joking. Lorine warmed up with paper cuts. First came a violation notice for excessively jubilant splashing audible from the cul-de-sac. I had laughed once while doing a cannonball. Apparently, joy is a noise violation in Pinecrest Heights. Then she issued a formal warning for my pool umbrella chroma, which she called forbidden teal in a 2-page letter with color swatches attached. It was blue. Just regular blue. The kind of blue you see on pool umbrellas everywhere. She left a suggestion card in my mailbox stating that my gate should remain unlocked for emergency hydration egress, which I assume she made up because it sounds official but means absolutely nothing in any legal sense. When I ignored her increasingly creative complaints, she taped a flyer to my fence inviting neighbors to open swim hours at my address every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 4. My address. As if my pool was the community recreation center and I was the volunteer lifeguard who had forgotten to show up for duty. I pulled the flyer down and installed a keypad lock on the gate. That is when things escalated from annoying to genuinely bizarre. Lorine started doing what she called compliance laps, which meant walking the alley behind my house in a swim cap and goggles pushed up on her forehead, timing my swims on a waterproof watch like some kind of aquatic probation officer. She carried a clipboard. She took notes. She would stop and press her ear against the fence, listening for what she called unauthorized recreational water usage. One time I caught her taking photos of my pool through the fence slats with a camera that had a zoom lens that looked like it belonged to a wildlife photographer. She claimed she was documenting violations for the historical record. She claimed a historic right of swim based on a brochure photo from 2009 where a stock model smiled near a lagoon that was definitely not in our neighborhood, probably not even in our state. She had blown up the photo to poster size and laminated it, presenting it to me one evening like it was the Declaration of Independence. "Look," she said, pointing at the smiling woman in the stock photo. "This is clearly our community pool." I pointed out that the photo showed palm trees and we live nowhere near palm trees. She said I was being pedantic. She left a beach bag on my porch marked community in block letters, like a cat dropping a dead bird as a gift. Inside were goggles, a nose plug, 3 different types of sunscreen, a handwritten schedule of proposed swim times for various neighbors organized by age group, and a whistle with a tag that said Pool Safety Captain. On Saturday, at high noon when the sun was at its most merciless, she arrived with a pool noodle tucked under one arm and 3 acquaintances carrying towels embroidered with their initials. They were wearing matching visors. Matching. Like they had coordinated this mission. "Open the gate," Lorine said with the confidence of someone who has never been told no in her entire life. "We are doing restorative lengths. It is part of our wellness initiative." I said no. Just no. Simple, clear, direct, in a tone that should have communicated that this conversation was over before it started. She blinked at me like I had spoken ancient Greek or told her the earth was flat. Then she announced, her voice rising with righteous indignation, that the HOA had voted to create a swim-to easement, which she insisted meant any resident could cut across yards to access water during heat advisories because it was a public health issue. I asked to see the recorded easement. She held up a laminated sheet titled Aqua Access Pilot in Comic Sans font. I held up my deed. You know, the legally binding document that says this is my property. That is when Lorine called 911, and she did it on speaker so we could all hear, which I think was meant to intimidate me but actually just provided excellent evidence for later. She claimed I was illegally detaining water needed by the community during a heat advisory. The operator sounded genuinely confused and asked her to clarify. Lorine repeated herself slowly, as if the operator was the one being unreasonable. When that angle did not land and the operator tried to explain that private pools are private property, Lorine escalated with alarming speed and creativity. He is hostile, possibly unstable, and there may be a child in distress, she said with manufactured panic in her voice that would have won her an award in a community theater production. The operator asked about the child. The child she was referring to was a pool float shaped like a narwhal. It had googly eyes and a permanent smile. Her friends nodded along like this was all very reasonable and normal, like people call emergency services about inflatable sea creatures all the time. Within minutes, sirens wailed down the street, getting louder as they approached. A police cruiser and a full-size fire truck rolled up, lights strobing red and blue across the stucco houses like we were hosting a rave or filming a crime drama. Neighbors came out onto their porches. Someone was recording on their phone. I walked out front with my driver's license, my deed, and my phone already queued up to show footage from my security cameras. I had 3 cameras covering different angles. The video was beautiful in its clarity. Lorine shaking the gate so hard I was worried she would break it. Lorine announcing public swim to her assembled friends while gesturing at my pool like a tour guide. Lorine coaching them to act dehydrated for maximum effect, instructing them to fan themselves and mention dizziness. The fire captain, a tired-looking man with sweat stains under his arms and the expression of someone who has seen too much nonsense, eyed my perfectly calm pool with its clean water and gentle filter hum, then the narwhal bobbing gently near the steps like the most relaxed creature on earth. The police officer listened to the 911 recording, and I watched his face do the math. False emergency. Misuse of emergency services. Attempted trespass. Lorine tried to lead a dramatic feint onto my lawn, pressing the back of her hand to her forehead like a silent film star. At that exact moment, Atlas, my robotic pool cleaner, bumped into the pool wall and beeped. Lorine shrieked that it was a drone and possibly weaponized. The officer closed his eyes for a long moment. The HOA board president, a man named Gerald who had been dragged here by frantic text messages, arrived sweaty and horrified, whispering urgently to the officer that there had been no vote, no easement, just Lorine ideation. The officer pulled out his body camera and replayed the footage for everyone present. He explained in a calm, professional tone that filing a false report is a criminal offense. The fire captain, clearly tired of being used as a prop in someone's drama, asked again who exactly was the child in distress. Lorine gestured weakly at the narwhal. The captain walked over to the pool, reached down, lifted the float, and squeezed it. The narwhal wheezed like a sad accordion letting out its last breath. Everyone stared at Lorine's lifeguard whistle. She tried to tuck it under her shirt collar with what little dignity she had left. She was cited on the spot for filing a false 911 report, attempted trespass, and disturbing the peace. The officer escorted her to the curb to await a ride, explaining that she was also being served with a temporary restraining order barring her from approaching my property line. Gerald, the board president, in what I can only describe as an act of pure self-preservation, removed Lorine from her position as Aquatic Harmony Chair immediately and read a formal statement disavowing all imaginative water policies. He apologized to me, to the police, to the fire department, and possibly to the narwhal. Court day arrived with a forecast of 98 degrees and shade in very short supply. The courtroom air conditioning was working overtime and still losing the battle. The judge, a woman in her 60s who had clearly seen Lorine's type before and had exactly 0 patience left for it, was not amused from the moment Lorine walked in wearing her lifeguard whistle like it granted her authority. She reviewed the 911 call recording, playing it for the entire courtroom so everyone could hear Lorine claim there was a child in distress. She watched the body camera footage, which showed Lorine's dramatic faint attempt and her shrieking about the robotic pool cleaner being a weaponized drone. She examined the fake easement document with its Comic Sans font and complete lack of official signatures. Then she looked at Lorine over her reading glasses with the kind of expression that could freeze lava. Then she fined Lorine $800 for the false report, assigned her 120 hours of community service, and barred her from holding any HOA office for 3 years. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. But the service assignment was the real masterpiece, the kind of poetic justice that makes you believe in karma. Lorine would spend her 120 hours at hydration stations at the public park pool 2 miles away, where she would hand out water bottles to people who were legally allowed to be there, wearing a bright yellow vest that identified her as a community service volunteer. The irony was not lost on anyone in that courtroom. She would be serving water to the public while being permanently banned from demanding access to private pools. Lorine's face went from red to white to a shade of purple I had never seen on a human being before. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She tried to speak but only managed a strangled sound. Her hands gripped the table in front of her so hard her knuckles went white. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom, and that was it.